Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's Advanced English Listening Practice Deep Dive. Our topic is how to politely interrupt someone.
And it's a topic that I think causes so much anxiety.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, nobody wants to be rude. The very act of interrupting feels like you're, breaking a fundamental rule of conversation.
It does. It feels like an intrusion. You even have that phrase built into the language, sorry, interrupt, which is basically an apology before you've even done the thing you're apologizing for.
That really just nails the problem, doesn't it? You're standing there, you have this vital piece of information, maybe a question or a correction.
Yeah.
But you're on this communication tightrope. You have to speak up, but you're terrified of looking aggressive or impatient.
And that feeling is, 10 times worse for someone learning the language? You're not just thinking about what to say, but how to say it, the tone, the cultural rules.
It's a lot to juggle.
It is. And that's really what this deep dive is all about. We want to help you turn that anxiety into confidence.
Exactly. We're not here to teach you how to just talk over people. The goal today is to give you the tools, the phrases, the timing, the cultural awareness to make a graceful intervention. We want to turn that moment of potential friction into a smooth, respectful contribution, one that adds value without, wrecking the whole flow of the conversation. So let's get into it.
I think the first thing we have to do is sort of change how we think about interrupting altogether.
I agree. It's not always a bad thing.
Right. It's not always about being impatient or trying to grab the spotlight. A lot of the time, it's actually a really functional, even necessary part of a good conversation.
That's the key distinction, isn't it? It all comes down to the why. Why do you feel the need to jump in? If it's just because you're impatient or want to hear your own voice, then yeah, that's disruptive.
Unproductive.
Totally. But when the interruption actually helps the conversation, when it adds clarity or corrects an error that could cause problems, then it's not just, okay, it's a vital tool. So we should probably break down some of those good, justifiable reasons to interject.
Let's do it. I think the first and maybe most common one is simply to ask for clarification.
This one feels like self-defense almost.
It is. I mean, if someone uses a technical term or some piece of jargon you don't understand.
Like, I don't know, an acronym in a business meeting, EBITDA, for something.
A perfect example. If you don't stop them right there and ask, sorry, what does that mean? Then everything that follows is it's gibberish. You're lost.
And it's actually more disruptive to wait until the end and say, can you explain the last 5 minutes all over again?
Much more disruptive. A quick, polite interjection for clarity saves everyone time.
Okay, so that's clarification. What's next? This one feels a little trickier. Correction.
Yes, and I'd add the word gentle correction. This requires a lot of care. The motivation here has to be collaborative. It's about setting the record straight when a factual error could mislead the group or, derail a project. It's not about being a know-it-all.
Can you give us a sort of high-stakes example of that?
Sure. Imagine you're in a meeting with a major client. Your colleague is presenting and they say the launch date is March 1st.
Okay.
But you know for a fact it was pushed back to April 15th because of a supply issue. If you let that error stand, the client starts making plans based on wrong information.
That's a huge problem waiting to happen.
A huge problem. So in that case, a quick, very gentle correction isn't just appropriate, it's essential damage control. It's for the good of the team.
Right. The phrasing there is everything. You have to make it about the project, not about your colleague being wrong.
100%. Okay, moving on. Another key reason is to add crucial information.
This feels similar to correction, but it's more about adding something that's missing.
Exactly. This is when you realize you have a piece of information that directly impacts a decision being made right now.
Like if a manager is scheduling a big meeting for next Tuesday, and you suddenly remember you have a conflict that can't be moved.
Yes. Or you realize you forgot to book the conference room. You have to say something immediately before the plan gets locked in. If you wait, the plan is built on a faulty foundation.
Got it. And that urgency also applies to the next one. Sharing an urgent thought or idea.
It does. This is so common in brainstorming sessions or any kind of creative meeting.
Aha moment.
The aha moment. An idea strikes you that's directly related to the problem you're trying to solve. If you wait for the speaker to finish their long story, that spark, that window of relevance might just disappear.
I think everyone's felt that fear of losing a great idea because you waited too long to share it.
And it's better to jump in respectfully than to let a potentially great solution just fade away.
Okay, what else?
Another one is preventing misunderstanding. This is more of a preemptive move.
So you see a problem about to happen.
Right. You realize something that was said, maybe even something you said, is being misinterpreted. You can see the conversation is about to go down the wrong path because of it.
So if I use a weird metaphor and I can see someone is taking it literally?
You have to jump in. You have to say, whoa, sorry, just to clarify, I didn't mean that literally, before they start making decisions based on your bad choice of words.
It's like preemptive clarification.
It is. Then we have the one that needs no apology at all. An emergency situation.
Yeah, this was pretty obvious.
Universal. If someone's about to spill hot coffee on themselves or walk into a ladder or the fire alarm goes off, you just interrupt. All rules of etiquette are out the window.
Safety first, always.
Always. And then finally, there are a couple of reasons that are more about managing the conversation itself.
Like a facilitator would.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The first is keeping the conversation on track. You're in a meeting, you have an agenda, but the discussion has drifted into talking about weekend plans for the last 10 minutes.
And the clock is ticking.
The clock is ticking. Someone needs to gently interrupt and steer the conversation back to the main topic. It's for the benefit of the whole group.
And the last one.
Introducing a new speaker or topic. Again, this is often the job of a moderator or a team lead. It's a structured interruption designed to keep things moving according to a plan.
So when you look at it that way, this whole list, it really reframes interruption. It's not just a disruption. It's a tool for making communication better, more accurate, more efficient, even safer.
And understanding that positive reason is really the first step. You have to believe your contribution is helpful before you can deliver it confidently.
Okay, so we've established why it's sometimes necessary to interrupt. But that brings us to maybe the harder part, knowing when.
The timing.
Yeah, the timing is everything. Because you can have the most polite phrase in the world, but if you use it at the wrong moment, you're still going to come across as disruptive.
You're so right. It's like you're trying to merge onto a highway. You can't just swerve in whenever you want. You have to find a gap. Communication is a shared space.
And breaking into someone's train of thought when they're in the middle of a really complex point.
Yeah.
That just feels disrespectful.
It is. You have to be an active listener, not just someone waiting for their turn to talk. You have to analyze the situation.
So let's break that down. What's the first thing to look for?
The most immediate thing is the speaker's flow and momentum.
You mean like their rhythm?
Exactly. Are they in the middle of a complex sentence or are they nearing the end of a thought? You're listening for a natural pause.
A breath.
A breath. A moment where they look up to think, the end of a complete idea. Jumping in between two full sentences is so much less jarring than cutting them off mid-clause.
Especially if you can tell they're really wrestling with a difficult concept. They're laying out a structured argument or presenting data.
In those moments, waiting is a sign of respect. It shows you value their intellectual effort. Waiting until they explicitly ask any questions or even just take a sip of water can make all the difference.
Okay, so you're watching the speaker slow. What's the next check you should run?
The next check is an internal one. You have to assess the urgency and impact of your point.
This requires some real honesty with yourself.
It does. You have to ask, does this really need to be said right now? Is it crucial information that will prevent a bad decision? Or is it just, an interesting little anecdote that popped into your head?
Right. So going back to your example, if a client is about to sign a contract with the wrong price on it, that's urgent.
That is urgent. You interrupt.
Yeah.
But if you just thought of a funny story related to something they said, that can wait. Patience is your friend there.
What's a good rule of thumb for that?
I'd say if the conversation can continue effectively for the next, say, 5 minutes without your input, then wait. Only jump in if the conversation from this point forward will be wrong or fundamentally broken without your detail.
That's a great filter. Okay, what about the environment itself? The setting and formality?
Oh, this is a huge one.
Dude.
The rules for a casual chat at a coffee shop are worlds away from a formal board meeting.
Totally different planets.
In those formal settings, a big presentation, a keynote speech, a legal proceeding interruptions are basically forbidden unless you're invited to speak. The structure is king.
So your strategy there is just wait, make a note, maybe try to make eye contact with the person in charge, but you wait for the official Q&A.
That's the default, yes. Now compare that to an informal setting, like a brainstorming session with your team or a dinner party. There's so much more flexibility.
In those situations, a little bit of overlapping speech can even feel collaborative, like you're all building an idea together.
It can, but even then, a little politeness goes a long way. You still need a softener.
And on top of all that, you have to consider the people involved, the relationship dynamics.
Absolutely. The closer you are to someone, family, good friends, the more forgiving they'll be if you just jump in. They know you, they know your intentions aren't bad.
But with your boss or a new client or someone you've just met,
You have to be so much more careful. The less social history you have with someone, the higher the stakes are for a conversational mistake. You need to dial up the formality and the politeness.
it seems like that also connects directly back to the cultural element we touched on earlier.
It does. For an English language learner, you're constantly trying to figure out these local norms. We talked about high involvement versus high considerateness cultures.
Right, so remind us what that looks like in practice.
Well, in a high involvement culture, people might talk over each other a bit. It's not seen as rude. It's seen as being engaged and excited about the topic. You finish each other's sentences because you're so in sync.
But if you try that in a high considerateness culture,
It can come across as incredibly rude. Most professional English-speaking environments, I'm thinking of the UK, Canada, a lot of workplaces in the US, they lean towards high considerateness.
they value taking turns.
Strict turn-taking. Interrupting is risky. It can make you seem aggressive or just like you have poor social skills.
So the advice for anyone listening is, when in doubt, just observe.
Observe the rhythm. If people are waiting for a clear pause before they speak, you must do the same. It doesn't matter how urgent your idea feels.
And if you're really not sure,
Default to the most polite, most deferential approach you can. You can always relax and be more casual later. It's much, much harder to undo a bad first impression from a rude interruption.
okay, this is really the heart of it all. We know the why, we know the when. Now we need to get into the how. The actual words, the specific phrases that act as a key to unlock the conversation.
It's a toolkit.
Exactly, the linguistic toolkit. And these aren't just, magic words. They're signals. They're designed to soften the blow of the interruption.
That's a great way to put it. You're managing the other person's expectations. And it all starts with that first moment, getting their attention respectfully. We can call it the gentle tap.
I like that. So what are some of the best ways to give that gentle tap? Let's start with the most formal.
For a situation with maximum respect, a senior colleague, a professor, someone you don't know well, the classic is, name, sir, ma'am.
Simple, clean, can't be misinterpreted.
Never. Excuse me, Professor Davies, I have a quick question about that diagram. It's perfect.
What about something a bit more all-purpose?
The absolute foundation of polite interruption in English is, sorry to interrupt, but the word sorry is like the lubricant. It acknowledges that you know you're breaking a rule, and it works in almost any setting.
But I've heard people say you can overuse sorry, that it can make you sound less confident.
That's an excellent point. If it becomes a verbal tick, it loses its power. So it's good to have some non-apologetic options.
Okay, like what?
Among peers, in a more informal setting, you could try. May I jump in here for a moment? The phrase jump in is dynamic. It suggests you're going to be quick and relevant.
And if you wanted to make that a bit more professional,
You could elevate it to, if I could just interject for a second. Interject is a more formal word than jump in, and using if I could makes it sound like a polite request, not a demand.
you use the word just there. If I could just interject, that little word seems to do a lot of work.
It's so important. Just is a minimizer. It tells the listener, don't worry, this will be small, this will be quick, it won't be a big deal. It reduces the perceived cost of stopping for you.
That's fascinating. It's like a tiny piece of social negotiation.
It is. And if you want to be even more direct about asking for permission, you can say, could I just say something here?
And again, using could instead of can makes it softer.
Much softer. It's more hypothetical, less demanding.
Okay, what about a really warm, friendly, collaborative setting?
For that, I love the phrase, do you mind if I chime in? Chime in has this wonderful sense of harmony, like you're adding a nice note to the music.
Yeah.
It suggests collaboration, not conflict.
That's great. So we've got the gentle tap down, but that only buys you a second or two.
That's right. You have to follow it up immediately with your reason, and it has to be clear and concise.
Let's go through the language for that based on the different functions we talked about earlier. Let's start with clarification.
Right. For clarification, your language needs to show you're trying to understand, not that you're challenging them.
So you want to put the focus on your own confusion.
Exactly. Use phrases like, I'm not sure I followed that last point. Could you elaborate? Or, Could you clarify what you mean by this specific term?
I've also found it's really effective to rephrase their point back to them as a question.
That is a brilliant technique. It shows you are listening really carefully. You can say, just to be clear, are you saying that rephrase their idea?
So a full example might be, if I could just interject for a second,
Yeah.
just to be clear, are you saying we need to shift the entire budget?
Perfect. Now let's move to the really delicate one, gentle correction.
The goal here is collaboration, not confrontation.
The goal is to frame your new information as an update, not as proof they were wrong. So you can say things like, actually, I think the updated figure is new number, or just update that. I believe the new guidelines came out yesterday.
It makes it sound like an honest mistake anyone could have made.
It does. And for a really high-stakes formal correction, you need to add another layer of deference. Use the phrase, with all due respect, I think there might be a small misunderstanding regarding that clause.
With all due respect, is a very powerful signal.
It signals you know their status, but the information is too important not to share.
So putting that into our meeting example, sorry to interrupt, Tom, but I believe the deadline was actually moved to Friday. Just wanted to quickly confirm that.
That's beautifully done. Okay, next up. Adding crucial information or an urgent thought.
Here, you have to prove your point is relevant right now.
Yes, you need strong connecting language. Phrases like, before you move on, I have a quick relevant thought on that, or this relates directly to what you're saying.
So in that scheduling scenario, may I jump in here for a moment? I just realized Sarah has a conflict at that exact time. You're showing why it has to be said now.
Exactly. And finally, the language for keeping on track or transitioning.
This is when you have to gently pull the conversation back from a tangent.
Right. And the key is to validate their point first so they don't feel dismissed.
So you acknowledge it before you redirect.
Yes. You say something like, that's a really interesting point, but perhaps we should return to the main agenda for now.
That validates them while still asserting the group's needs.
And if you're a facilitator, you can be a bit more direct, but still polite. Thank you for that insight, David. Now, moving on to our next speaker.
So you've done the tap, you've stated your reason. There's one more piece, right? The exit.
The smooth exit. This is non-negotiable. You have to hand the floor back to the person you interrupted. It reinforces your politeness.
And it's usually very simple.
The simplest phrases are the best. Thanks for letting me jump in, or back to you. Or even just a simple, polite, please continue.
Okay, let's put that all together. Run a full sequence for us one more time.
Okay, let's use clarification. It would sound like this. Sorry to interrupt, but I'm not sure I followed that. Could you clarify what you mean by synergy in this context? Thanks for letting me jump in. Please continue.
Wow. When you hear it all together like that, it's so smooth. It's polite, efficient, and shows a really high level of social skill.
That's the goal.
But, that brings up a good point. It sounds great when you lay it all out, but doing that whole dance in real time, monitoring the flow, choosing the phrase, managing your tone, it sounds kind of exhausting. How do you practice that without just freezing?
That is the real challenge. And the answer is you don't try to do it all at once. You automate parts of it.
You mean memorization?
Exactly. You should have 2 or 3 of those opening phrases like, sorry to interrupt, or may I jump in, so deeply memorized that they're automatic. A reflex.
So you're not searching for the opener. You're just focusing on the timing and the content.
You got it. It frees up your mental energy to focus on the hard parts. It's like learning scales on a piano. You have to master the basics so you can play the beautiful music.
It's so important to stress that you could have the most perfectly crafted phrase, but if your delivery is wrong, it just falls flat.
Oh, absolutely. Your nonverbal cues, your body language, they can completely undermine your words. If you say, sorry to interrupt, but you're scowling and your arms are crossed.
The message they receive is not sorry.
Not at all. We often process those nonverbal signals even faster than the words themselves. They reveal your true intent.
So let's talk about the physical signals that help make an interruption polite. What do you do even before you open your mouth?
The first thing is eye contact. You try to catch the speaker's eye for just a brief moment. It's a silent way of saying, I have something to add when you have a moment.
It's like raising your hand without actually raising your hand.
A very good analogy. And you can pair that with a slight lean forward. It shows you're engaged and eager to contribute, but it's not aggressive. It signals enthusiasm, not impatience.
And your overall posture is important too, I'd imagine.
Crucial. You need to maintain an open posture. No crossed arms, no tapping your fingers on the table. Those things signal frustration or boredom. You want your body to say, I'm a collaborator here.
What about actual hand gestures? Is there a subtle way to use your hands?
There is. In a meeting, a very subtle half-raised hand can work. Not a big wave like you're trying to get a waiter's attention, just a quiet signal that you'd like the floor next.
And while you're waiting for that moment to jump in, you can't just zone out.
No, that's fatal. You have to keep showing you're listening. Nodding along with their points is essential. It tells them, I hear you, I understand you, which makes your eventual interjection feel less like a contradiction and more like a contribution.
Your facial expression has to match your intent too.
It has to. If you're asking for clarification, look curious, maybe slightly puzzled. If you're offering a gentle correction, look concerned and helpful, not smug.
Okay, now let's go deeper on the cultural nuances, because this is where so many advanced learners can get tripped up. The rules are not the same everywhere.
Not even close. Let's take that idea of high context versus low context cultures.
Okay, give us a practical scenario.
All right. In a high context culture, say in Japan, so much of the meaning is conveyed through unspoken cues, shared history, and an understanding of hierarchy. Directness can be seen as very jarring.
So interrupting someone, even with a polite English phrase, could be a major misstep.
It could be. In that kind of environment, you're expected to be much more indirect. You wait for a very clear signal that it's your turn to speak. A direct question. A long, expectant pause from the senior person in the room.
Now contrast that with a low-context culture.
Right. Think of Germany or the United States. In these cultures, the emphasis is on clear, direct, explicit communication. Get to the point.
So in that kind of culture, a polite interruption that corrects a factual error might actually be appreciated.
It might be seen as a sign of respect for efficiency and accuracy. As long as you use the right polite phrases, the value of your information can justify the interruption. Clarity is valued over strict formality.
What about the differences between, say, the US and the UK? They're both English-speaking, generally low context.
But there are still subtle differences. That's a great point. I'd say American conversational pacing can often be a bit faster, a bit more comfortable with overlap. Whereas in the UK, especially in more formal or academic settings, there's often a stronger emphasis on very deliberate turn-taking. The pauses between speakers might be a little bit longer.
So an interruption that feels normal in a fast-paced New York office might feel a bit abrupt in a London boardroom.
It might. And it means you, the listener, have to tune your ear not just to the words, but to the silence between the words. Respect the pause.
And underlying all of this, there's always the issue of hierarchy, power dynamics.
This one is huge, and it can override the other cultural rules. Even in a very direct, low-context culture, interrupting your CEO is very different from interrupting a peer.
So what's the absolute safest play when you're speaking to someone with much higher status?
Wait for them to ask for your opinion. If you absolutely must interject, you have to use the most deferential language possible.
How would you do that?
You frame your statement as a question, not an assertion. Instead of saying, that number is wrong, you say, excuse me, sir, I wonder if that figure might be closer to 4 million. You make it a suggestion, a humble speculation. It removes the challenge.
It all comes back to this idea that it's an adaptive skill. You're constantly reading the room, the people, the culture, and adjusting your strategy.
That's it. Your goal isn't just to be understood. It's to be seen as someone who is socially aware and respectful.
Okay, let's really put this all into practice now. Let's talk through some specific, tricky situations that people face all the time.
This is where it all comes together, applying the theory.
Let's start with a very common one. In a meeting setting, a formal, structured team meeting.
Right. In this environment, the agenda is your guide. Your first move should always be nonverbal. Make eye contact with the person running the meeting, lean forward slightly, signal that you'd like to speak next.
You're showing patience.
You're prioritizing patience. But let's say your manager is about to approve a budget based on numbers you know are out of date. You can't wait.
What do you say?
You have to be formal, apologetic, and frame it for the good of the group. Something like, excuse me, Mr. Thompson, I apologize for cutting in, but I believe we need a quick clarification on those numbers before we approve this.
The phrase, before we approve this, really highlights the urgency.
It does. It makes your interruption selfless. And then as soon as you're done, you say, thank you, please continue. You give the floor right back.
Okay, scenario 2. During a presentation or a lecture, this feels like a highest level of difficulty.
It is. The social contract here is that one person speaks and everyone else listens. So the rule is simple. Don't interrupt.
Just don't do it.
Just don't. Write down your question. There will almost always be a Q&A session. The only exception is a real emergency.
What if it's a genuine comprehension issue, Like, you truly can't understand anything else until one point is clarified.
Even then, it's very risky. But if you must, you use the most deferential language you can possibly find. You have to minimize the interruption.
Give us the phrase.
Excuse me, Professor. I'm so sorry, but if I could just clarify one very small point that will help me understand the rest of your talk. You see how you're framing it? It's about your need to learn, not a flaw in their presentation.
That's a good distinction. Okay, let's switch gears to a much more relaxed setting, in a casual conversation or a group discussion.
Here, the rules loosen up a lot. You're looking for natural lulls in the conversation, when someone takes a breath, when everyone laughs.
And the language is less about apology and more about connection.
Exactly. You use phrases that tie your point directly to what was just said. Things like, oh, speaking of that, it reminds me, or can I just jump in for a sec? I had a similar experience.
Using sec for second makes it sound very informal and quick.
Very. And sometimes, in a really dynamic chat, you don't even need a full phrase. A slight intake of breath, a lean forward, and then just starting your sentence can be enough to claim the next turn.
Okay, now for the advanced maneuver. The boss level. When someone is monopolizing the conversation, one person is just talking, and no one else can get a word in. You have to intervene, but without starting a conflict.
This is so tough. Your reason for interrupting here has to be about the group's needs, usually time or inclusion.
So you wait for a pause, a breath.
You have to. And then, if you're the one in charge, the facilitator, you can be a bit more direct. You acknowledge their contribution, then redirect.
How does that sound?
Mark, those are really great insights. Thank you. In the interest of time, though, I want to make sure we hear from Jane on this topic as well.
But what if you're not the person in charge?
Then you have to be even more careful. You make it about something neutral, like the clock. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I see we're almost out of time, and I just wanted to make sure we quickly covered that final point.
You're making the deadline the reason for the interruption, not the person.
Exactly. It depersonalizes it completely.
Okay, so let's flip this on its head. Let's talk about being on the receiving end. How you handle being interrupted.
This is such a critical skill. It says so much about your own confidence and maturity.
So let's say the interruption is a good one. It's polite. It's for a necessary clarification.
You just roll with it, acknowledge it, answer it, and get back to your point. Good question. What I mean by that is X. Anyway, as I was saying, you show that you're flexible and not easily flustered.
But what if the interruption is just plain rude or unhelpful? Someone's just trying to talk over you.
You have options, and your choice depends on the situation. Option 1 is the gentle but firm pushback.
How do you do that without escalating things?
You use polite but clear language to reclaim your turn. Things like, pardon me, I hadn't quite finished, or the slightly more direct, if you could please let me finish my thought.
What's another option?
Option 2 is to simply ignore and continue. This works for very small, maybe unintentional overlaps. Someone starts to talk over you, you just pause for a beat, hold eye contact with your audience, and then keep going.
You're non-verbally saying, I still have the floor.
Precisely. And option 3 is what I'd call acknowledge and defer.
What's that?
You show them you heard them, but you put them on a waiting list. You say, that's an interesting point, and I do want to hear it, but if you don't mind, I'd like to finish this thought first. I'll hand it over to you right after.
Wow. That's taking complete control of the dynamic. You're not being rude, but you're not yielding either.
It's the highest level. You're managing the conversation to meet your goal, even when faced with someone else's poor etiquette.
We have covered so much today.
Yeah.
From the fundamental why of interrupting all the way to the specific words and body language of the how.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. But I think the core message, really, is that polite interruption isn't about aggression. It's about balance. It's about balancing your need to contribute with a genuine respect for the person who's speaking.
And when you can do that, it's a huge sign that you've moved beyond just knowing the grammar of a language and into, well, a real social and professional fluency.
So for everyone listening, the next step is just to listen.
That's it. Become an observer. When you're in meetings, when you're watching TV shows, listening to other podcasts, pay close attention to how native speakers manage this. How do they take turns? What's the timing like? What little phrases do they use?
And maybe don't try to master everything at once. Just pick 1 or 2 phrases to start with.
Yes. Start small. For this week, just try to consciously use, sorry to interrupt, or may I jump in here, memorize them, make them your go-to tools.
And then reflect on it afterwards. After a conversation, just take a second and think, how did that go? Was my timing right? Was my tone okay?
That self-correction loop is where the real learning happens. It's how you get better, faster.
Because in the end, I think the real secret to all of this, the foundation of this gentle art, is just empathy. It's not about forcing your way into a conversation. It's about understanding the flow, respecting the other speakers, and then gracefully, kindly carving out a little space for your own voice.
And that ability to contribute your ideas with confidence and respect, that's what turns a language learner into a true communicator.
We hope this deep dive helps you contribute effectively and respectfully in your English conversations. If you found these techniques helpful, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel.